So there was a lawsuit filed. Wisconsin versus Miami is what we titled it. But there was a lawsuit filed revolving around former DB Xavier Lucas, who transferred to the University of Miami after signing a 2-year TV revenue deal, the highest at the time when it was signed, a TV revenue deal with Xavier Lucas to stay at the University of Wisconsin. But now Wisconsin has sued over tampering and tortious interference of the 2-year deal for Lucas, who, by the way, was not named in the lawsuit. He was labeled as Player A in the lawsuit. Lucas's name not being mentioned, though, did not stop Wisconsin for tampering and trying to regain money for the TV revenue money that they already had given him. Now, it should be noted that it was also reported at the time of the transfer that Yahoo Sports did post and did run a story about Xavier Lucas saying, or him not saying, but his main reason for transferring, per sources of Yahoo Sports, which you know those guys very well, that it was a family illness issue, which really came down to. So, Joe, Wisconsin versus Miami, not on the field, but a lawsuit of NIL. Your thoughts?
Just an added detail here. Xavier Lucas in Miami kind of set a precedent and tried to skirt the transfer portal. And the way that they tried to do this was him unenrolling at Wisconsin and enrolling at Miami, despite signing a 2-year. This is something that we've talked a lot about in the new world of college athletics, despite signing a 2-year revenue sharing agreement that was binding. This wasn't a loose contract. This was a binding deal that he was earning revenue from the University of Wisconsin, that he had to stay there. And they tried to go around that. They tried to go around just the general concept of the transfer portal because they argued that they violated NCAA rules. His lawyer argued that they violated NCAA rules by not putting his name into the portal within 48 hours. They argued that they are required to do that. I am glad that Wisconsin is filing a lawsuit. And I think that once the College Sports Commission becomes a thing, that tampering in instances like this are going to be really focused on. I really think that that is going to be the biggest issue. I think it's going to be a lot less to do with impacting how NIL affects high school recruiting. I think that there's going to be a little bit of a learning process. They are out to fix this tampering problem. And I think that this is well-timed deliberately, that they moved silently for months, to the point where Ross referenced in his article, and I also, or not Ross, the CBS Sports article that I read, referenced the fact that it was almost like nothing was going to happen, that they just, in a way, gave up. They were moving so silently. This comes after the House case announcement and then the inception of the College Sports Commission, which is supposed to police this stuff. I think that this lawsuit, in good and bad ways, and I'll get to the bad ways after you chime in, the good way being,
go ahead and get to him. Yeah.
The good way being that if Wisconsin wins this and some sort of financial value is determined to be awarded to Miami, that is now the new precedent for if a player chooses to leave before his contract is up. That creates the precedent of what is a buyout? What does that look like? You know, we need these things in order for that tampering issue to be fixed, in order to prevent tampering from happening. And then the inverse, for the schools that lose their players to get something in return. But the big problem here, Blake, on the other side, is that if they rule in favor of Miami and say, like, well, you know what, Wisconsin had to, put his name in the portal, so they're not owed anything. If they rule in favor of him, that automatically makes all of these revenue sharing agreements unenforceable. All of them. It makes all of them unenforceable. That means kids can just sign these contracts, do whatever the hell they want. And that would just completely wreck all of the progress that we had. That's the one thing that I get afraid of.
I don't know if it will. Let me tell you why I don't think it will. Because this happened before the House settlement case was determined and before the commission was there. So the commission cannot get their hands involved in this, the way that I understand it.
Yeah.
Because this happened before. This is now going to be it's got to be a civil suit of when the action happened before the House settlement case took place. I understand what you're saying, but I do think that there's going to have to be a situation where that this kind of situation is going to have to happen after Xavier Lucas, if that makes sense. Because you can't bring up the House settlement case. You can't bring up the College Football Commission because of the simple or College Sports Commission. You can't bring them into the fold here because the actions happened before this was even invented. I understand what you're saying and agree. I think that that's happening later on, though. Is there going to be another lawsuit of this type of thing happening? Joe, I don't know, or for me, the way that I see it, and we're not attorneys, we're not in civil law, whatever, I have no idea how this is going to transpire. Joe, my only thing is what if he can prove that his father had an illness?
I hate this is going to come off as crass, but I kind of think that it has a lot less to. It's an important piece, right? Like he's trying to prove that, like, hey, this was something that was an issue. It was referenced in the CBS Sports article that apparently the day that or right around the time that he entered his name, I think it was the day of, he was texting with a position coach about changing his number at Wisconsin. So it kind of is like, well, how does that suddenly come up? Nobody knew about this until.
Let me tell you how that suddenly happens. You're talking to your position coach. Your dad has a heart attack and he can't go to work, and your mom doesn't work either. I mean, like,
fair point.
There's a lot of ways that could be sliced, but they're all. Yes. It feels too good to be true, right? Like it feels too good to be. Here would be my question. I'm sure Miami's paying them a little bit more. I'm not saying that they're not. Okay. It's not as if Wisconsin was giving him chump change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Would he really want to leave for something like, I don't want to say something smaller. I don't think they broke the bank for this kid. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I think what's going to have to come of this in all actuality is his dad ill? Is his father ill? And if they can prove that, Joe, based off of the portal, I mean, listen, I do think that he's going to have to pay some kind of pay some money back.
I don't think he will, because again, Lucas isn't technically in the lawsuit. I think that Miami's going to be responsible for paying. So, but this was my point about when you just asked about his dad's illness. I'm not saying this to say that it's meaningless in the conversation, and it's very meaningful in his life. And I hope that there's nothing wrong with his dad, and I hope that he's able to recover. That might not be the case. I've dealt with parental health issues before in my own life, and it's awful. But the thing is like, I don't know if it necessarily, in the context of this specific lawsuit, that it can really, it applies as much, because the whole argument is that Miami tampered, that Miami met with him when they were not supposed to at his home, that ramped this up and sped this up, and that caused him to
let
make
me bring up another.
leap.
Look, I'm not trying to take Miami's side here, or player side.
I'm not taking anyone's side necessarily. Yeah. I'm anti-tampering in this situation.
So just in case this is the first time someone has ever watched Ruffino and Joe show, we have had exclusive debates about how much I hate tampering.
Yep, we both
just have. So that correct. So just so that I'm on record here, there is another problem that I have here in reference to this too. Hey, and you brought this up. You didn't put him in the portal, though. How long is he supposed to wait? So you violated the own rule that you obliged that you were going to do anyway. I mean, Joe, we remember covering I don't remember how long by days it happened. It damn sure took him more than 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so again, look, I don't think that this is going to be like the Nico Iamaleava situation where it kind of is earth shattering. I just feel like there's going to be a settlement here to some extent, and where I don't know of another world where it's not. I think that in today's world, with the House settlement case and with the College Sports Commission, that you're now in a place where when this happens again, because it's going to happen again, that you are going to have to do it. Now, something that we could kind of add into this, Joe, buyouts were approved by everybody. Buyouts are a thing now. So, I mean, if you transfer, and per Pete Nakos, and Ross Dellinger, buyouts have already been somewhat happening of kids signing contracts and then schools giving money to buy them out so that they can be in the portal and nobody's saying anything. I just think that here's what I wish would happen. If anybody does get involved, let's say the College Sports Commission does get involved here, mediate, say, hey, what does everybody want? Let's squash it and have a new day for college football. Because this is the kind of shit in the offseason that turns people away. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to talk about this. So what? Okay, so what? And I got to be honest. I wouldn't want to be in Wisconsin either. I wouldn't. And so I get it. People are not going to agree or think I'm defending the kid. I think both sides are at fault in some instances. But you did sign a contract. They did pay you money, and then you left. And they're trying to recoup that. But, Joe, this is not the only one. The Madden Imalava situation with Arkansas. They're trying to get a reconciliation on their money.
Well, but he actually followed the guidelines of leaving on the correct timeline. Well, let me ask you. Obviously, by the way, there obviously clearly was tampering in that situation because you tell me that when Nico was moving to UCLA that there wasn't a quick conversation of like,
we know
does Madden want to come too? Why don't they telling his dad, why don't you call Madden and see if he wants to come play?
We know that there was. But let me ask you this. There's also a violation of you not allowing him in the portal.
I think that that's all kind of like nonsense at this point. I'm just really hung up on the contract. You signed a contract. You signed a 2-year contract with no out. That is on you. If you had representation, you have a lawyer that you have been going to. You should have understood and knew the stipulations that you can't predict and understand and know when you're going to have a family health issue. That I don't put on him. And again, you mentioned I'd be in the same shoes. Like I'd want to be close to home if I possibly could be. But I think that if you signed a deal, you have to understand what comes with that. You can't just back out. And the thing that does suck is that there was no flexibility by Wisconsin that, they couldn't have. The fact that there was no parameters to go by for a buyout to have been created because this happened before the House case was settled, it creates a very messy situation. I don't know if Miami tampered, but if they did, they should.
They want that. So here's the ultimate truth. Let's call it the way that we see it. They 1,000% tampered. I mean, let's just be real. They 1,000% did. And let's talk about this, Joe. What lost them the playoff? What ultimately lost them with a Heisman level defense and more than defense? It was their secondary. Joe, they went in the portal and grabbed 5 kids from the portal in their secondary. Let's call a spade the way that we see it. What it looks like on the surface, the kid signed the contract. Miami was looking all over the place because they needed DBs. He was a South Florida kid, and they were like, well, hey, man, I got a connection to Xavier Lucas. I know it sounds crazy, and they went after him. They're going to have to prove that his dad's ill. That's the only way that I can see them getting out of this, and I don't even know if that's going to be enough.
Right. That's what I'm getting in here. I don't know if that's going to be enough because at the end of the day, one of the quotes in this article from the CBS Sports article, a Big Ten source said, no one can tell me why a contract shouldn't be enforceable between an adult and an institution. Contracts are enforceable in every other aspect of the commercial regulatory enterprise. So one thing that did kind of stand out to me, it felt like that the Big Ten was aggressively motivated, like very aggressively motivated to support Wisconsin to make sure that they end up winning this.
He personally didn't come out with a statement, but his office did.
Mm-hmm.
His office said that we stand behind Wisconsin and we will back Wisconsin in this lawsuit. And good on them. Good on them. I don't think anybody is. The sad thing is, I don't think anybody's on Xavier Lucas' side. And if any of his story is true, they should be. Because at the end of the day, players are human. We take that far out of, you got to stay here. No, you don't have to make me do anything. I don't have to come into work. I cannot. Joe, we do this for a living, so we're kind of our own bosses. But if we don't want to do a show, we don't have to do what we don't want to. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that there's not consequences to those actions. So like we were
an easy example here though is that like we have a deal with Bet Online, which I'm pointing to on the top of the overlay. If we didn't meet the requirements and we just didn't do shows for a month, we wouldn't get paid. So like that's the very simple comparison. It's not. I hate when people do the whole, well, if a bigger company offered you a job, wouldn't you jump and leave as comparing? It's not the same thing. If you sign an enforceable contract, like a sponsorship deal, you have to meet the terms of that deal for that period of time.
1000% agree. And listen, if there is a bigger company out there that wants to give me multi-millions of dollars, I'm all for it.